another CADimensions Lunch and Learn. My name is Derek Welker, and today we're going to be discussing professional versus premium. So this is a question we get asked a lot is, what's really the benefit to upgrading to professional or premium, or, when I'm purchasing the software, what's going to be beneficial? And, there's so many tools that get included with professional and premium and even standard that I just wanted to kind of point out, some of the key ones that we see as being really beneficial or really things to look into when it comes to professional or premium. So today I'm really just going to be kind of going through the products and telling you where they fit in, what they do, how they work and stuff like that. I'm not really going to get into demoing each just because I don't have a lot of time to do that. So I'm going to be talking about really the key features that we see as being beneficial and kind of taking you through some of the highlights of them. So here's a SOLIDWORKS overview, or a spreadsheet or a matrix or whatever you want to call it. And this is where everything kind of falls in, standard, professional, and premium. So I'm going to take you through 5, 6, or 7 of these add-ins. First one's going to be Toolbox. And then we're going to move over into Visualize Standard. Now, Visualize Standard is actually a new product that was added in. We'll kind of talk about how we used to do it and where that added in. We're going to talk about PDM Standard, which used to be Workgroup. We're also going to talk about Costing, eDrawing Professional, and that's going to be all of our professional tools. And then we're going to highlight into Simulation and Routing. So before we really get into Toolbox, there's actually one I kind of wanted to throw in here. It's actually not on this spreadsheet here, but there is a something called FeatureWorks. So it's a way where you can recognize features of the imported model. So you bring a model in that is imported from another CAD package that has no features to it, but you need to edit a little bit. What this does is it analyzes the geometry and determines what features SOLIDWORKS can recreate for those specific things. The great thing about it is it can actually convert the geometry to a SOLIDWORKS feature with dimensions and relations as long as it's specified in the options. So you can bring in a model that has no feature tree whatsoever and essentially build up an entire feature tree with dimensions and relations and everything there, so you can go through and manipulate it. Now, when you have like a really complex model, this is definitely going to take a while to build. But in an instance like this, or with this example here, it's a fairly simple part and it's very easy to recreate. And the features that we're talking about are just basic features like cuts, holes, extrudes, fillets, and stuff like that. It's not going to get into creating lofts with sketches and everything like that. That's a little bit too complex for it. But it will give you the ability to kind of manipulate holes and extrudes and cuts and stuff like that. So now let's talk about Toolbox. Toolbox is really exactly what it sounds like. It's a library of fasteners and hardware. So it lives over in the task pane, and you can basically bring in an entire fastener library, and there's actually over 1 million components. Now, some of the great things about it is it automatically sizes your component. So you just say, okay, I want to use a socket head cap screw. You drag it over, and it automatically determines the size or diameter of that screw based on the hole that you're putting it in. So it automatically knows. It also defaults a specific length to it, which can be set up in the configure option of the Toolbox. Basically, it specifies what the percentage of the bolt you would like it to lead on the backside or have additional on the backside. So it kind of automatically sizes things as far as diameter and length goes. And you can also have it size accordingly if you put other fasteners on as well, like washers and nuts and stuff like that will update. So another thing about Toolbox is you can actually automatically populate all your hardware with accessories. What I mean is, okay, if you've got a ton of holes in here that you need to put screws in, washers on both sides, and nuts, you can kind of automatically populate, specify what type of washers and nuts you want to use, and it basically puts all of them in your model. So you don't have to drag in each one, mate it specifically, bring in more, and do it like that. So there's a huge time savings when it comes to SOLIDWORKS Toolbox and how it can automatically size things and actually automatically populate all of the hardware with everything that we're doing. The other thing is, it is included in your bill of materials. So if you have your socket head cap screws or screws or whatever you're doing with your washers and nuts and stuff like that, it will automatically put those in your bill of materials. If you have some that are different lengths, it will do that as well. But you can also fully customize this toolbox library. So if there's sizes that are not in here that you're looking for, you can always go ahead and do that. You can also apply part numbers for specific things that you might get from McMaster-Carr. So that's one thing that McMaster-Carr does, is you can kind of download specifically what you're going to be purchasing from them. But if you're using something very similar inside a toolbox, you can name a part number specifically to that configuration of that size and length and everything like that, so that it kind of matches up with your McMaster-Carr part numbers. And that's just one example there. All right, moving on to SOLIDWORKS Visualize. Visualize is a new tool that was added in a couple of years ago, 2015, I believe. And its goal is to create realistic product images. So basically creating marketing content. In the past, we had what was called PhotoView 360. We had a software that would create renderings. But now when we talk about PhotoView 360 and Visualize, there are a lot of comparisons out there between the two. And PhotoView 360 really just gave you a rendered image. It gave you something that you knew came from CAD, that was a little bit nicer. But when we talk about Visualize, we're talking realistic images. Just from this example here, you would almost be hard pressed to say that this was a rendering. So there is much more capabilities as Visualize. And we are seeing now with Visualize coming on that there's a lot more need for people to go to professional specifically for this tool. There is another portion of Visualize called Visualize Professional that is a separate product that needs to be purchased, which includes like animation, some VR capabilities, and some other things. But you're really getting a good bargain as far as Visualize goes right within inside of SOLIDWORKS. Visualize has a very, very easy to use interface. Even though it is a SOLIDWORKS product, but it didn't come specifically from SOLIDWORKS. They've made the functionality of like the zoom, pan, rotate exactly the same as SOLIDWORKS, and just kind of the same way you're used to kind of dragging and dropping appearances on a model inside of SOLIDWORKS. That's very much how it works inside of Visualize. So if you're used to using SOLIDWORKS or even PhotoView 360, you'll be used to using Visualize. Visualize was actually formerly Bunk Speed. So if you're familiar or know anything about Bunk Speed, it used to be Bunk Speed, and they kind of transferred it and used it in part of Visualize. Also, one thing to note is the Bunk Speed package that SOLIDWORKS has, including animations and everything, used to be $10,000, but you actually get 75 or 80% of that right within inside of SOLIDWORKS Professional. So it is a really, really good deal to be included inside of SOLIDWORKS Professional. So Visualize Standard comes within SOLIDWORKS Pro, and Visualize Professional comes as a secondary purchase. So the Visualize is a huge reason people are moving to Professional, and it is something that we see is a big game changer for us as far as the quality of content that you're going to be receiving out of SOLIDWORKS from this. All right, moving on to PDM Standard. PDM Standard, if you're unfamiliar with PDM, it is a data management software. It used to be, or we used to call it, or what used to be inside of SOLIDWORKS was Workgroup. So Workgroup had an end of life the end of this year, so the end of 2017. There will be no longer Workgroup, or it might have been last year. Sorry for the confusion there. But PDM Standard is what is replacing Workgroup. And it's essentially a data management software, and it takes our PDM Professional that we've been selling for years, and it's a small little portion of that is included inside of SOLIDWORKS Professional. It's meant for a small group of people working with inside of the same network, and it has a lot of functionality. So it is, if you've used PDM Professional in the past or have seen stuff about it, it's pretty much the same look. There's just some other functionality built in. So if you're new to PDM Standard, it does contain some permission control. So certain people have access to certain files, certain people have read-write access to certain files, and so on and so forth. So a lot of the features includes the ability to still have data cards. You can have revision schemes. There's variables that you can have in there, workflows, and you still get an eDrawings preview inside of PDM Standard. And so moving on, it's also a way for you to secure your files. So basically there's a login that's required to get in. It's a really good way to kind of secure all your files and make sure that nobody's gonna get into your network and take any of your proprietary information or data. So it's really great. It helps with revisions. It helps with just data management in general, making sure that you don't have duplicate files somewhere, or one person's files that they're working on are on their machine, whereas the other group inside of your company is working from the ones that are on the network. So, it removes a lot of those issues that we see when it comes to data management. Let's move on to costing. So costing is something that a lot of people do use. It's definitely beneficial to a lot of the people that are going to be quoting jobs that they're going to be manufacturing. So what costing does is it calculates the manufacturing cost of components. So basically what it goes through is it analyzes the geometry, and for like a machine component, for example, it looks at the material removal rates to determine, okay, if I'm using this size tool, this is roughly my feeds and speeds of this. It's going to take me X amount of time to cut out, which is going to cost this amount of dollars. It also calculates in your material costs. So you can see we specify our material cost in dollars per kilogram. In a metric template, if you're using inches, it'll be dollars per pound. And then you can specify your stock, and you can see we've got a material cost here in this example of $300 with a manufacturing cost of $135. So it uses that. And then in the background, it uses a database to compute all of these projected costs. And it can actually compute a lot of costs for water jet, plasma, machining, sheet metal, etc. So if you're working with a sheet metal part, it'll calculate all the cost of the bends that you have to do. It also includes your setup time. So if you're machining something that has 3 different setups on it, it will include those. It knows that there's going to be 3 setups, and it will include your setup time and then the setup cost that's associated with that. So it definitely is super helpful to calculate the cost of machining something to quote. So you don't actually have to go through and create the program to then quote if it doesn't, and then you don't get the job. So it does remove a lot of hassle that way. But the only thing that is a caveat of that is because there is a database in the background, you definitely want to take a look at it to see if it's going to be, or set it up in a way that reflects the prices that you guys would charge for things. So there's a little bit of work that's involved on the front end, but once you get that work set up, it's pretty much smooth sailing from there, and definitely can help your quoting department. All right, eDrawings Professional. So most of us know what eDrawings is. eDrawings is a free viewer that you can use to view SOLIDWORKS files and a lot of other native CAD files. But there is eDrawings Professional. And what eDrawings Professional does is allows vendors or customers the ability to mark up and measure models, for one example. So if you have eDrawings Professional on your machine, when you save out eDrawings or save out like an eDrawings file, you can actually enable the measure functionality, and you can enable markup, so that when or whoever gets that eDrawings file, they can actually measure things and they can mark it up and throw annotations on there. So it is definitely a way for you to communicate with the vendors or your customer in a way so that if they don't have SOLIDWORKS, you can still communicate these design ideas and they still know what's going on. So that's something that you need to have for eDrawings Professional. So if you have it and you save out an eDrawings and enable markup and measure, the customer that you're working with does not need to have eDrawings Professional. They just need to have eDrawings. So it's just specifically for the person that is creating the eDrawings document to be able to turn things on, so that eDrawings can do that. Also, some other functionality is that it can play SOLIDWORKS animations and also move components. So you can look at animations, move components around. So it just really creates more of that communication between the customer and the vendor or whoever's really working with these. Also, another thing with eDrawings Professional is you can include basically login credentials as well. So if you're sending it to somebody through an email and you want to call them and just say, hey, look, here's the login credentials, they can when they try to open the file, they have to log in. So you can still maintain that proprietary information between whoever you're sending this to, but still allow them access to look at the files and manipulate them and play with them. So definitely super helpful. It's not really a deal, or not really something that we see that people really push for SOLIDWORKS Professional to get eDrawings Pro, but it is definitely something that is helpful when moving to SOLIDWORKS Professional. So just kind of like one of those added benefits. So now let's talk about routing. So routing basically automates the process of creating paths for pipes, tubes, or electrical cables between components. You can kind of specify your components, and routing goes through and creates those either electrical wires or pipes and tubes to be able to give you exactly what you need. One thing that is optimal for is packaging reasons, specifically with electrical. You know, if you're working within a really small part and you want to put in, or a really small build, you can put in your harnesses and cables and route everything together, so you make sure that you have enough room for everything and stuff like that. Also, as far as an assembly goes, you know, if you have all of your piping and routes and stuff, or piping and tubes, you want to make sure that that's going to fit in your assembly. You also got to make sure that you know how much material that you're going to have, so that you know that you can order that amount. It also, for piping, it will allow you to do flexible tubes, so you can create one long tube and then just bend it in the specific locations, or you can do rigid pipe, so you just have a pipe and then you have an elbow, so that you can weld those together and work that way. So we do have a lot of functionality that's built into that, and that's how it works. So the great thing is it determines your required length on wires, cables, harnesses, pipes, and tubes. Also, it automatically routes your wires. So you basically specify kind of where your start and finish is going to be, and it can automatically route them for you. You can actually do it manually if you want, using like 3D sketches, but it can kind of automatically do them for you. And as far as with piping, it gives you options to choose what type of route that you want. With the electrical stuff, it really gets into like 3D splines, because it has to be more curvature continuous, which is completely understanding. But with piping and tubing, you do get options to specify what type of, or how you want the route to look, but you can also manipulate the 3D sketch afterwards and kind of adjust that as needed. So here's an example of some tubing, So some tubing with some elbows. You can see that the purple, pink, magenta color is going to be your tubes, and then anything that's yellow is going to be like your flanges, fittings, elbows, or anything like that, so that you can visually see the different correlation of things with inside of your routing assembly. Also, here's an example of a routing drawing. So what you can do, once you have the routing part, you can actually take that part of it and just do a pipe drawing from it. You can also create small little sections of the pipe to break out and throw those on a drawing individually. But it comes in with dimensions, and also comes in with a bill of materials. So it gives you the length of all of your pipes specifically, and it also gives you the dimensions, so that you know what needs to be done to be able to build this. You can break these up into different spools, so that they're a little bit easier to read, and you can do those individually, or you can leave them as a whole and kind of work on it like this. But the great thing is once you create the route, or you have routing kind of create all of these things automatically for you, you just create yourself a pipe drawing, and you're pretty much all good to go. Moving on to simulation standards. So routing is included in SOLIDWORKS Premium, and simulation standard is also included with SOLIDWORKS Premium. So what this does is it gives you the ability to specify linear static studies for parts and assemblies. So any sort of forces, torques, anything on a part or assembly, you can do with inside of Simulation Standard, which is included in SOLIDWORKS Premium. So any sort of forces, displacements, torques, anything like that's going to be linear, a metal model, for example, you're going to be able to do within the SOLIDWORKS Premium. Now, this is a huge reason that people move to SOLIDWORKS Premium, because they do get this simulation or FEA tool is part of it. Also, part of Simulation Standard is you get the ability to run a fatigue simulation, right? So you put on this force thousands of times, you can actually see the fatigue of that and see if it does displace over time or change or weaken or anything like that. You can run those simulations as part of SOLIDWORKS Premium. Another thing is you can look at design studies. So you can automate studies to find the best results. So a design study, you basically set up goals. You say, okay, I want my factor of safety to be above 1. I want to minimize the weight of this, and then here's here's a dimension that could change or potential change, and it basically runs through options, and it gives you the optimal results for what you're trying to do. So there is a lot of optimization that's built in to the model to see what's going on. So this is a huge reason as to why we see people moving to SOLIDWORKS Premium is for simulation. It's one of the most common reasons. But also know, if you're looking for a little bit more functionality out of simulation, you can still go with, SOLIDWORKS Standard and get kind of Sim as a separate purchase as well. But we see that Premium a lot of people go to because they get a lot of other functions and features built into Premium and Professional that's included with Premium, so that other departments can use or other people can use while they're using just simulation. So it's something that a lot of people we see push to get because it includes so much other things, and also they really need these FEA studies. So it's a great FEA tool inside of SOLIDWORKS Premium, and we see that this is one of our most commonly used add-ins, or most common reasons that people upgrade to Premium. Also, there is you get Trend Tracker as part of Simulation Standard as well. All right, that's all I got for today, guys. I appreciate you guys sitting in and just kind of understanding what each one of these add-ins do, where their functionality is, where they fit into place, and how they can be beneficial to what you guys are doing. And if you have any questions, now is the time to ask. If you want to know a little bit more about each one of these products, please reach out to CADimensions so that we can kind of give you some more information about these products and how they could be beneficial to specifically what you're doing. But feel free to ask them at this time. My name is Derek Welker. Hope to see you on the next Lunch and Learn. Have a great day.
Don't forget to check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and our blog for more great content by clicking on the links in the description below.